Hello, Nope Coach listeners. Welcome to episode 88, Beyond Alcohol. I'm Suzanne Culberg. I've invited back the amazing Mary Wagstaff. If you haven't listened to our previous episode, I'd encourage you to pause this one and go back. We talked about people pleasing and drinking. And Mary I had to interrupt Mary on a total tear, which was amazing. And I was like, no, let's go give this its own episode. So I guess where I want to start with this, Mary, is in our previous discussion, you were talking about how we attach drinking to, maybe potentially past preferences, or then we realize, hey, I'm only hanging out with this person, or I only go to these type of events because I've been drinking. And then I'm so curious. I'm thinking, how do I phrase this question? When people come to you, is it more the realization that I don't want to do this anymore, navigating that, or is it the navigating the drinking, or does it depend, or is it a bit of both? Because I wonder, like, sometimes there's things that we only do. I'm just thinking more like kids' sports carnivals wearing zinc cream. Like, kids don't normally walk around wearing zinc cream, but at sports carnival day, we're going to decorate our faces. Or there's things that we only do in certain situations. Mm-hmm. So when people are coming to shift out of that, the people that you work with, is it more the relationships behind it that brings them to you, or is it the behavior of drinking itself? Because the episode Beyond Alcohol, I'm curious.
It's such a good question. And it's really so multi-layered, because we have such a social stigma around alcohol, the normalization of alcohol, the infiltration of alcohol into literally everything, from movie theaters to yoga classes to everywhere. And then there's also this other part of alcohol, which is what it means to not drink, which also has a stigma around the term alcoholic or recovery or sobriety. And that also creates like this othering and this other connotation. And what I find, especially for women, is that they're at this threshold. I usually work with people kind of like past the motherhood phase, not just mothers, but like, late 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, where they've been drinking for a long time and they aren't getting the results they want. They keep reaching for this external thing that they've associated with many of their emotions, and they're looking for more meaning and connection in life. And yes, they are experiencing, negative consequences from it, but it could be from extreme binging to like, I'm having 2 glasses of wine every night and waking up in the middle of the night and getting crappy sleep, And so yes. What I tell people is there's like, you could Google search it. I think everyone has like, am I an alcoholic? I personally don't believe in the term alcoholic. I believe there's a spectrum of addiction. I think alcoholic is a made up word, and it's not useful for anyone because it keeps people stuck in the belief that they cannot unlearn alcohol and that they can't eliminate their desire to drink. And that is the crux of most drinkers, is that when you're in it, you think you're going to always want it. You think you're always going to have the same desire today that you will in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And what I find with my approach, and I was this person as well. I mean, I was a daily drinker for almost 20 years. Where I had almost resigned myself to it, because I looked into the future and I thought, oh my God, if I'm going to feel this deprivation forever, that sounds awful. And so there's these 2 choices that we kind of believe that we have with alcohol, which is to try to moderate and control ourselves or be deprived. But in the end, moderation is still giving alcohol this really important role in your life. It's like, I've got to figure it out so I can just have one, be like one and done. And when we start to get curious about it, we just examine like, what's up with just the one? Like, what if you got to a place where you literally eliminated your desire to drink, then what? Like, would that one drink be as important? Because that is the journey that I went on. And when I started using what I call my 5 shifts approach of intuitive drinking, it shifted, a switch flipped in my brain where I could see a brand new perspective around alcohol. That is not mirrored in our culture. And what it really was through the lens of feminine intuition, nervous system regulation, and emotional intelligence and embodiment. So women that they have this inkling that there's something different. Like they're like, I just can't give up on the fact that this is just the way it is. And I have to like have alcohol in the headlines of my life forever, or I have to like claim myself as something other. Like they want to move on, right? Like there's alcohol, and then there's the rest of life. And this little liquid in a glass is just as institutionalized as any like religion or money. Like it's become this thing, this belief, right? And it's very limiting. And I do think we're in a phase in the world and culturally, like human evolution, where people are starting to question this narrative, like, why is this so important? And even for someone like yourself, like as a non-drinker without any issues with alcohol, it's still kind of like, there's this idea that people have, like that alcohol is normal, and like if I don't drink, like what do people think? And even as a non-drinker, right? So women are coming looking for more meaning and connection, but we've got to get alcohol out of the way first, and then we go and find that wholeness. We fill the void with the wholeness from the inside, which is really steeped in, like I said, refining the intuition and really getting to understand that our emotions are portals of deep transformational information. They have so much knowledge, they have so much wisdom to teach us, and they teach us about our preferences. They teach us about our expectations that we have that maybe aren't serving us, or our needs that we have that aren't being met. And when we dull them or numb them or avoid them or squash them or push them down, we're really living a life that is limited. I really think a life with, and I do think alcohol is neutral until you consume it, and then it does its thing. But like, it's not about shaming alcohol, but I do think a life where we have where we're constantly altering ourselves in some way or the other, through a chemical, is a limited life. Like there is a limitation to it, because you're
Yes.
not fully expressing you are not in a full aligned embodiment with, this is who I am and how I would naturally show up in this moment. So that was long-winded,
I
but
was gonna
girl,
say
I
there's
could talk
so
all
much
day.
richness there. A couple of things that I want to pull out. The first one, and I did an episode on it, when the normal numbing behaviors don't bring the expected result. So,
Ooh, yeah.
sometimes it could be, one drink and I feel calm, or I feel settled, or I feel this. So then I take 2 drinks, or then I take 3 drinks. It can be that with food. It could be, a mini Mars bar or a small chocolate bar, and then a family block, and then a couple of family blocks. Like sometimes we increase the amount of the thing that we're consuming, chasing that numbing feeling, or chasing whatever it is, avoiding the void. I used to be a medical student, so I left in my 5th year. But I remember in one of my hospital placements once, a person came in. They were taking 47 Nurofen pluses a day. If most people, if you or I just went and took that, they would kill us. Like, if you went for it. But the thing is, we adapt. Our body adapts to the thing. So it's like, if I have this and I have this, and we see functional alcoholics, or we see, depending on what your addiction is. Like for me, I weighed twice what I did now. It was visibly obvious I was doing something, though I was in denial. And people would often say, "Oh, you eat like a bird." Yes, in public. But there is that point where, the normal behaviors, and then something you said on the previous episode that I linked to that in my mind, that Forever 21, because in life there is aspects of us that we see televised, or you go through phases that are expected. A baby then learns to crawl, learns to walk, goes to school, goes to college, and whatever. And I wonder if the phase that you speak about, 40s, 50s, post kids, especially as the children don't need us so much anymore and move off, there isn't really a template for that in Hollywood or in whatever. It's kind of like the woman's on the shelf.
Yeah.
So we partake. I wonder if there's a link in partaking in these activities to try and feel, younger again. And it's kind of like, why aren't we modeled that, it isn't the end once, and then even if you think about Disney, once they've married the prince, the movie's done. There isn't any often, and that's why I love Moana, because there's the grandmother, and if she refers to herself as the village crazy lady, but she's dancing with the things and doing her own, like really living by.
She's
like,
the medicine
she's such a
woman.
great role model for that, but there's not a lot of that in many stories and stuff. And I wonder if that's why a lot of us try and reclaim our youth through things that don't align with us anymore.
Yeah. 100%. Well, I have so much to say about that, and it's kind of interwoven into my work. I teach a lot on the feminine mysteries, which are ancient traditions that we have really been void of. The divine feminine has really been buried and shamed, and the woman's body has been shamed. Um, and right before we got on this call, we were talking a little bit about menstruation, and there's this whole actually really beautiful experience, right? Like that has also been shamed in so many ways. I mean, literally, it is the ability to create and give life, which is the most powerful thing that a human can do, right? So of course, we don't, it's like there's this like idea that in our kind of capitalist world currently that people don't make money off of an empowered woman. When a woman doesn't need anything outside of herself to feel full and whole and holy, there's really no money to be made off of that, right? And so, and there, like, of course, there's circumstances around that, but so yes, what I believe is that our traditional modern rites of passage have been dumbed down and dulled to a point where we're not equipping our youth with tools of resilience and physical, mind, body, spirit, holistic support to enter these next phases of their lives and go through these kind of liminal phases of change where like that rite of passage is here's a beer or whatever. And then in traditional cultures there were many celebrations through the different stages, especially of a woman, right, that don't look the same that they do anymore, but that is being reclaimed. You'll see women's circles and people studying the moon mysteries and feminine embodiment is really starting to be something that we are reclaiming and understanding and coming closer to our own cyclical nature. And so I think that there's this wounding from like the day that we're born where there's this separateness that we don't know, like we don't know it exists, but the second we find out that it exists and we hear it as women, there's like this deep knowing, like it's like something that we know by heart but we don't know by mind. We don't have the words for it. And so that's something that I also link my clients with is their feminine essence, right? And this isn't about shaming the masculine or anything like that, because we have all these energies inside of us, but it is about reclaiming and honoring what does feminine leadership look like. And I think that as this is such a really important point, that as women have kind of taken their claim out in the world in more of a leadership roles and gone into the workforce, drinking for women has increased substantially. So have like pharmaceutical drugs that for like mental health, that's also increased because women are now kind of expected to hold these two roles, crushing it at work, but they're also doing all of this stuff at home. And the reflection of what leadership looks like hasn't been mirrored in the feminine, and it looks very different. Women live in very different cycles. We live in a 30-day cycle or 28-day cycle, not a 24-hour cycle. And so it's like, to meet those demands, it's like, what the fuck do I do? Like and so for me as an independent woman from a very young age, I saw my mother and her women's liberation movement was more of a masculine, like I can do what you can do, rather than like, well, actually I can do what you can't do. And let me show you how. Right. And that, I think that there's this disconnect, and then women are left with like this need to find some relief. And then like you could add on adversity and trauma and all of those things and intersectional issues that show up with that, with different diverse cultures and demographics and stuff. But so for me, and when I really specifically look at women, although the approach would apply to anyone, but it's this intersection of belief and behavior that is often not looked at when it comes to like substance abuse or addiction, where our beliefs about the way that we think things should be are really in the way of being able to rewrite a story without having like where we can unapologetically say like, no, thanks, instead of having it like be this really big deal. Right. And then of course there is a chemical addiction process, but that too can be shifted without, again, having to like claim yourself as something other than just awesome.
I love this. There's more I want to ask, so I'll see if you've got time for us to do one more episode. But to bring this one to a close, let everybody know who's listening what you do and where they can find you.
Yes, thank you. Yes, so I am a holistic alcohol coach for women. I work privately with women one-on-one to take them through this beautiful sacred journey of kind of reclaiming their wholeness outside of, the lens of alcohol. And I do have a podcast also. It's called Stop Drinking and Start Living. And you can find that and all of my information on my website, marywagstaffcoach.com, just like my name with a W. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for joining me. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll catch you on the next one.